From Nashville, Tennessee, Music City, USA, and the home of hot chicken, it's the Rick Altizer Show. Sit back, buckle up. Rick will talk with the movers, shakers, and creators who put Christ in Christian entertainment. He's a man who's clear so the world can hear. Here's Rick Altizer.
All right, well, welcome back to part 2 of my celebration of 150 shows. This is a best of part 2. Last week we did part 1, looking at my it's just kind of amazing. You think about 150 shows and the amazing people I've interviewed on this show, from filmmakers and actors and singers and songwriters and recording artists, and then people behind the scenes as well, producers, marketing people who kind of make the machinery work in the Christian media industry. It's been such a blessing to be able to do this show. Really, it's just something I've loved doing. And I want to thank you guys for listening. Thank you for being, I've just got a loyal listening audience, which blows my mind that I have that. Thank you so much. And then, I want to just, before I even go any further, I just want to thank Bot Radio Network for letting me have this show. This was, their idea, and they've been supportive. Just been great to work with. What a wonderful network. So thank you, Bot Radio Network, for making this show possible. And as I kind of joked last week, thanks for not taking me off the air and canceling me. But it has just been such a blessing to be able to have this show. So with 150 shows, I have had so many interesting interviews. So it's really hard to go through them all and pick the best of. So I just picked 3 interviews today, and really, you've just got to go check out the shows. You can go to botradionetwork.com. Down at the very bottom in the search box, just type in my name, Rick Altizer, and it'll come up with my show. You can also check out all my shows by going to rickaltizer.com. Or you can just, any place where there are podcasts, just search for the Rick Altizer Show. So there's lots of ways to listen to these shows from just everyone you can imagine. Really, 150 shows. It's just amazing. So I encourage you to go check those out. So today we're going to focus on three shows. And the first show, of course, I want to do this week is going to be Russ Taff. For those of you who've been following the show, you know that I did his movie that came out last year. In the movie, he discusses his alcoholism. Russ Taff is a Christian singer. He's been put in the Gospel Music Hall of Fame 3 times. I think 5 or 6 Grammys. I don't remember. I knew all this last year when I was making the movie. Anyway, the movie did very well. It was in the top 10 in the U.S. when it came out. It's I've been very honored. It's been given 5 different awards from film festivals, which has been great. We just won best documentary, and I was up for best director. I mean, it was just kind of mind-blowing how well the movie's been received. So that's just thank you to all the people who made that possible. But what many of you might not know, this all started with an interview with Russ right here on the show. So I interviewed Russ, I guess about 2 years ago, and in the interview, for the first time ever, publicly, he discussed his alcoholism. He had never done that in print or, in interviews. This was the first time he did it. I don't know why he chose to do it on my show, but the Rick Altizer Show it was the first time he talked about publicly his struggle with alcohol. And as he was getting Grammy Awards and on stage with the Imperials and singing in front of thousands of people, going back to his hotel room and drinking, and just the shame coming from an abusive situation as a child and a father who was an alcoholic pastor, and just a terrible background. So he was sharing all this with me on the show. And then after we did the interview, I just kind of mentioned to him, by that point I think I'd done 2 of the Shonda Pierce movies, which he had seen both of the movies. They're friends with Shonda. Russ and his wife, Tori, are friends with Shonda. They'd seen the movies I'd made for Shonda. And we kind of talked about that a little bit. And I said, I think your story might make a good movie. He just kind of left it at that. Then they called me a few weeks later and said, hey, can you come to Bell Buckle and let's have dinner? We'd like to take you to dinner. So I came and met with him, and it was just so great to meet with him. And they said, Rick, what would it look like to do a movie? What would that look like? And I remember telling him, well, I will put your name in the movie, and I would, make the movie, in the title, I would have your name. But I looked at him, I said, but I won't make a movie about you. I would make a movie about the powerful redemptive work of Jesus Christ. And so if you are okay with that, that's what the movie would look like. This would be about Jesus. And that's just what they wanted to hear. That was right in line with their heart. So from that, the rest is history. We went on to make a movie that is now, you can watch the movie. It's on Amazon Prime. You can go see. It's Russ Taff, I Still Believe. And I encourage you to go check that out. But it all started with this interview. So here for the my first interview for this best of, I like to just kind of play this section from my interview with Russ Taff here on the Rick Altizer Show.
With the Imperials and standing in front of thousands of people, and everybody's telling you how wonderful you are, but in your heart you don't believe. We were one of the first Christian groups to ever play live on the Grammys. I mean, you're standing there in front of billions. You won. They voted you the best, but it would last 30 minutes. And you go back to the hotel, and within a matter of 30, 45 minutes, you don't feel it anymore because there is a hole in your bucket. And no matter how much people would pour into it, it would quickly just drain away. I had a pretty damaged heart being raised in a Christian home with a father who was a very charismatic preacher, but also an alcoholic. And no matter what you did, it wasn't enough. I was in New York with Tori. We'd been married maybe 5 years, and it was one July, and it was so hot. We were on the 5th floor of an apartment down in the Village, and there was no more Coke. Their water tasted bad, but he had a Heineken in his refrigerator. And in Nashville, there's Christians who socially drink, and I'm not judging. It's between them and God. But when I had that Heineken, I immediately had another one. And something began to happen inside of me, and the pain got quiet. And so I had 3, and the pain got real quiet. And I really thought, Rick, this is a miracle. I can live this way because the voices are gone. The pain is gone. The brokenness is gone. I didn't know this could happen. And so that set me on a trek of starting to drink a lot. And it did. It would quiet the voices. But very quickly, it turned on me. And it got a hold of me. And so on top of everything else I had been through, now I had put myself in prison again with this substance that lied to me and told me that it would help me live with this pain. And within a short amount of time, things were worse.
There might be some people listening right now, some women who might have a husband who's struggling with addiction, or maybe a man who is not wanting to admit his own issues with addiction. I want to know what kind of words you might say to that person that might give them encouragement and hope.
Well, if you've heard me talk, you're identifying with what I'm talking about because you want to be free. You have spent those sleepless nights with great pain, and you fight so hard to protect that addict so you can have that substance, but it's destroying your life. It would break my heart to see you go through your whole life and never experience freedom, never experience love, because addiction takes away your soul a piece at a time, and over the years till there's just this shadow of something in there, but you can be free. And if you're listening to my voice and you're feeling this in your heart, because everybody wants to be free, and you can be free. It may take some work. It may take you being honest with someone or your pastor to begin to talk about it, to begin to be honest. And that's where the healing starts, is when you are honest and you can tell somebody honestly what's going on. And it took me a while to trust someone, to tell them what was going on, because I'm this Christian artist that's, doing all this stuff, winning awards, traveling all over the world. And there was a scared child in there, afraid I'm going to be found out. But you can be free.
You're listening to the Rick Altizer Show on Bot Radio. And that was an excerpt from my interview with Russ. So powerful. I encourage you to go check that out by going to botradionetwork.com and searching for The Rick Altizer Show. Or you can go to rickaltizer.com, or wherever podcasts are played. You can search for The Rick Altizer Show and find that. And again, you can see the movie on Amazon Prime, Russ Taff, I Still Believe. I think that was a 2-part interview, so I encourage you to go check both of those out online. So next, I had to include actor Kevin Sorbo. Kevin has been in so many Christian movies. He's been Hercules. He's been in Andromeda, so a couple of really big network series that he was in. A very, very well-known actor. And we got talking about his life and about some of his own personal issues and some of his own personal struggles and some of his own challenges. So I thought it was really interesting to kind of hear that side from Kevin. So here are a few excerpts from my interview with Kevin Sorbo on The Rick Altizer Show.
We are here at the Opryland Hotel after a speaking engagement, and just getting from where we were at the hotel to here, I'm exhausted.
It was interesting, wasn't it?
Well, we'll just start by just that experience, just walking from that one place to another where you were just swamped by people. Everywhere you went, people were coming up to you. Normal people don't have that happen. How do you navigate something like that?
I think Los Angeles is interesting because a lot of actors live in Los Angeles, so people see them. But they act a little cooler about it, I guess. This is the audience that likes the faith-based movies I've done, so I think they go a little more crazy when they see you in person.
So just as we're walking, and people are coming up to you, they're all wanting to get a picture with you, and one guy was handing you an idea for a script, and it was just like every 10 steps you took, there was another 10 different people wanting something from you, but there was this adulation. Does the praise of men, does that affect you?
No, not really. I mean, like I said, I think because of the characters I played overall, most people certainly know what the faith-based ones have done. But I've done like 50 movies, and the 2 TV shows between Hercules and Andromeda. There's like 250 hours of television there. But those characters are approachable characters. In television, I think people, because they see you week in and week out, they think that they know you.
I wanted just to ask you about your Christian journey, your Christian faith. How did you come to faith?
I know of a moment when I was 14 years old when I saw Billy Graham speak. I was blown away. I remember getting the goosebumps and getting the feeling and all that. And I've had it, I would say my illness was huge for me when I suffered 3 strokes. That was huge for me.
Well, let's get into that. You had an aneurysm in your shoulder,
my left shoulder, my left subclavicle, yes.
And so these blood clots got into your...
They'd been sending clots into my arm for a long time. I don't know what it was. I just knew these fingers were getting numb and cold because the blood clots won.
At this time, you were Hercules.
Doing Hercules.
You were on the set 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
You were in great shape.
Sure.
You're a big hot shot.
I thought I was.
You're on top of the world. And then this thing happens with your stroke. So then what happens after that?
I just wrapped season 5. On Hercules. Hercules, the year before, just passed Baywatch as the most watched TV show in the world. We're in 176 countries. It was booming. And I went to see my doctor who found a lump in my shoulder. And I could tell on his face it bothered him. He told me later, after the strokes happened, he thought it was cancer. He thought it was Hodgkin's or something.
Oh, my goodness.
He thought it was a cancer. So that's when I went to see my chiropractor. And the neck crack happened there. And he never cracks my neck. It was weird that he cracked it. But the aneurysm was so close to the artery feeding into the brain that movement forced it to pop open. Hundreds of clots went in my arm. By the time they rushed me to the hospital, this arm was basically blue. They just stuck a needle right in there with heparin, Coumadin, blood thinners just to pump it through there to break up all the clots that they could break up. And but unfortunately, the strokes happened. And I'm very fortunate that it didn't kill me. I'm very fortunate it didn't put me in the hospital the rest of my life or in a wheelchair the rest of my life. And 3 strokes of the brain can go anywhere, right? Well, 2 went to my balance center, 1 went to my vision. I still have a 10% loss in both eyes.
So here you are, having achieved success in the world's eyes, everything the world has to offer. Here you are, Kevin Sorbo, you've got it. And then this happens, you have this stroke. How did you respond to that? How did you deal with that emotionally?
I think I went through the 12 steps that alcoholics go through and everything else. Denial, anger, frustration. I railed against God. I was angered. Why did you do this to me? God didn't do it to me. In fact, he tried to warn me. He told me not to let the chiropractor crack my neck, and I didn't say anything. And I accepted it, and I think that was a big turning point for me to really follow God more, when easily you could follow the other way, I guess, and just get angry and say, oh, why did this happen?
You're listening to the Rick Altizer Show on Bot Radio, and that was Kevin Sorbo talking about his stroke that he had. And, there's way more in that interview. I've interviewed him twice, actually, 2 different times on the show. I've interviewed his wife as well. And you can go and check those out. I've been saying this a bunch, so I won't belabor it too much, but you can go online and find those. And I do encourage you to check that out. So Kevin, I just found to be a very down-to-earth person and has been a good friend since then, been a big supporter of the Shonda movies and the Russ Taff movie as well. So thank you, Kevin, for all your support. Next up is an interview I did with Jennifer O'Neill, and you might remember her as the cover girl from the 70s and 80s. She was a cover girl. She was in Rio Lobo with John Wayne as an actress. Very well-known face. At one point, she was on, I don't know how many magazine covers she's been on. It's hundreds and hundreds. And so, but she is a believer, a strong Christian. And so we talked a lot about her struggles as a child and her depression and wanting to take her life. And we just got really into some really... the thing about the show that's so amazing is that we do get into really deep topics. It goes a little beyond what a normal interview show would be. And I like to talk to a lot of the artists I interview. I'll tell them we kind of get under the hood a little bit, talk about some of the mechanisms of how we make our art, of how we make music or movies, and some of the procedures we use and songwriting and those kinds of things and the craft involved. But then we also really get deep with some deeper things. That's the great thing about having this show where I can just extend it out and do 2 shows where we're talking and, have about a 45-minute, 50-minute conversation. You really have time to go into deeper things. So we did that with Jennifer. And again, this is a 2-part interview. I'm just doing a few minutes from the interview, and I encourage you to check out all of that online. But here, without further ado, here is a segment from Jennifer O'Neill. You're listening to the Rick Altizer Show. This is a best of, and so we'll be back to regular programming next week. But here's a clip from that interview with Jennifer O'Neill that was about 3 years ago. You started modeling professionally at 15, and you've been on the cover of Vogue, Cosmopolitan, 17. I don't know how many covers you've been on, probably 8,000 covers.
I don't know. Over the years, yeah.
You had worldly beauty. You had, not everybody gets that. You're just kind of born with that.
Oh, yeah, that's just a gift.
You had worldly fame. You had world fortune. You had everything the world would say this is desirable for a woman to have.
Exactly.
You could have probably got any guy interested in you that you wanted. Money, fame, covers of magazines, movies, this amazing career. So in the middle of all that, how's Jennifer O'Neill doing?
Well, my story, I said I had a harrowing life, but I had a life that looked so good on the outside and hurt so badly on the inside. From the time I was little, I felt invisible. At 14, I tried to kill myself because my parents sent my brother away to school and moved me into Manhattan and took my dog to the pound. They weren't mean people, but they didn't have a clue what I was about or what was important to me. And I didn't want to die. I just wanted to be heard. And so I have a passion and a tenderness for people who are suffering depression and suicide. And if your listeners stay with this crazy story of my life, you'll see how God recycles everything. Romans 8:28 for His purposes. So I went into Manhattan. I was very shy, and it was painful for me to model because I felt invisible and uncomfortable. And boom, Ford Modeling Agency took me on. I was 15 and traveling the world by myself and making a whole lot of money. But I had come into that situation, and nothing was recognized, understood, grieved, or healed in my life. The suicide attempt was shoved under the carpet, and I just went on. And it became a pattern in my life.
So you talked about as a young child wanting to be noticed and feeling invisible.
Yes.
And then you went from that to being on just about every TV commercial there was, on every magazine cover there was.
Right.
as you're on the covers,
Right.
Are you still searching to be noticed, searching to be...
Totally. Searching to be loved.
The question I like to say is once you found Christ,
Right.
then how did that change for you?
Well, first of all, that hole that in my heart that I was feeling, only Christ could fill. My answer was in Jesus Christ through his grace and forgiveness. And then that hole started to be filled, and my life slowly changed, not in an instant. We're a work in progress, as they say. So I think that the healing, the forgiveness, the wholeness, and the seriousness in the way that we have a purpose, and that's where the real joy and the real peace is. And we have a God we can trust, that he keeps his promises. And he's waiting for us to want him more and more.
For my last interview, I'm going to include something that I did just a few months ago. It's with a singer by the name of Matthew Ward. You might know of them. From back in the 70s, he was in a band with his sisters called The Second Chapter of Acts. For the first time, this was just a few months ago, I interviewed him. He just lost his daughter. His daughter struggled with addiction, and she died. And he had not talked about that yet anywhere. I think that happened about a year ago. And on my show was the first time he spoke about that. With the show, we can go deep and we can get into issues of things that are very hurtful, painful, disappointing, and where do you find God? Where do you find your strength? Where do you find hope? And, those are important things to talk about. And that's, the gospel is here for us, not just for when things are good, but when things are terrible. And when we don't understand how can this happen? How can I lose my daughter? And so we talk about that here. This is Matthew Ward on the Rick Altizer Show.
What? We thought we were going to take her to the hospital or, whatever. And so I asked them, I said, well, were there alcohol bottles in her room? Because we didn't know at that point, we didn't know. And he goes, yeah. And I said, what? Probably vodka bottles, right? And he goes, yeah, and a big 175 of Fireball and all this stuff. So I just don't know if Thanksgiving time and Christmas was just more than she could handle, or I don't know what the deal is, but she's dead now. I do know that. I don't know how it happened exactly, but it was a mess. So we're dealing with that.
I'm so sorry.
And I'm dealing with all the woulda, coulda, shouldas. Maybe I shouldn't have done. I was doing the tough love thing. Well, when you're sober for this many days, then we can. And I look back now and I go, I would just chuck all that, and I don't care if you're drunk. Let's have lunch. But I don't know that would have changed anything one iota. Looking back on it. But you play those games and you beat yourself up, and
Sure.
So it's been hard, and I grieve, and it comes in waves. So that's what I tell people. How are you dealing with it? You don't get over it. You go through it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be going through it the rest of my life, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So
when you have that happen, I can only imagine that's the worst tragedy, is to lose your child. And does that push the orphan buttons?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it does. And it pushes it. It's interesting, the buttons that it's pushed in me. I'm not mad at God over it. I know we all have our time to go and all that good stuff. I get that, but it did, because I know another family that's dealing with a situation very similar to this, and their daughter is 20 years down the road from where my daughter was. If she would have lived through it another 20 years, this is where my daughter would be. So maybe the Lord just saved her from all of that nightmare and saved us for 20 years of heartache.
No, you can't know.
You can't. I don't know. You can't begin to. That's what the woulda, coulda, shouldas, guessing games. You blame yourself. What could have I done better? What shouldn't I have done? You play all those games in your head, and it's rough. It's really rough.
In John chapter 6, they come up to Jesus and they say, "Show us the works of the Father. What are the things we got to do? Show us the works." He says, the work, one work, is to believe.
Wow.
But to believe that he's sovereign, he's in control. He knew she was going to die.
Yeah, I think it's amazing how much stuff we put on ourselves.
And that he's good.
Yeah.
Okay, how can this be good?
Yeah.
Tell me what's good about
good
this.
in this.
It's
five kids don't have their mom.
Yeah.
I don't have my daughter. Yeah, what's good about that, right? My son-in-law's raising 5 kids by himself, basically. It's tough. And they're all boys, too, let me tell you.
5 boys?
We can't keep them all. My wife and I will take 2 or 3 out of the 5, but we can't have all 5 of them. It just makes us nuts.
So there's that struggle, that we have. And you're sharing your story, but there are people listening who are relating to you right now.
Yeah.
That was Matthew Ward talking about the loss of his daughter, which had just recently happened. You can hear the pain in there. It's hard to do that in an excerpt, just to take a little bit out of it. You really need to listen to the whole thing, and you can do that online, and I encourage you to do that. Thank you, Bot Radio, so much for 150 shows. Thank you so much for listening today, and for those who've listened to the show regularly, thank you for your support. So with that, we are out of time. So it has been a privilege and an honor to be doing this show for you, and thank you again for your support, and I hope you join me again next week. Bye. If there's a show you've missed, you can go to my website, rickaltizer.com, and catch up. Or you can listen to my podcast in iTunes or wherever you hear your podcasts. Just search for The Rick Altizer Show. Altizer is spelled Altizer. I want to thank you for listening. Hey, would you tell a friend about this show and share the love? Be sure to check us out again next week as we discuss how we communicate the gospel through media to our culture. Let's be clear so the world can hear. I'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening.